Good morning, all. I think we gave the 5 minutes courtesy. I would like to very welcome all of you to this 8th webinar of our series of Hub Talks, the country support process and lessons learned. I am very happy to see today representatives joining together, country, IT and health representatives, clinicians, representatives from medical organizations, industry, health economies, health experts, patient organizations, and related health institutions. In this multi-stakeholder platform, as the multi-stakeholder approach is key when implementing and scaling up mHealth programs. The setup of large-scale mHealth programs is hindered by organizational, technical, economic, and cultural barriers that require tailored adaptations to be set up progressively and integrated in current care services. The WHO Global Strategy on Digital Health encourages the development of national strategies on digital health through an all-inclusive multi-stakeholder approach, including all actors collaborating within communities of practice. In this regard, this webinar is a great opportunity to learn more about the European mHealth Hub work together with country representatives and stakeholders, collecting and sharing national experiences on mHealth for supporting countries and regions in setting up large-scale mHealth programs, building countries' capacity by providing technical assistance to plan, implement, and scale national mHealth programs according to countries' needs. Enriching in this manner the European mHealth Hub knowledge transfer platform as focal point for expertise on mHealth in the whole European region, helping facilitating innovation in mHealth and accelerating the EU digital single market. With no more delay, I welcome our excellent speakers of this workshop, which will present expert information, lessons learned, and key recommendations from the Hub work to learn by exchanging experiences on successful approaches and bottlenecks overcome by different countries and regions. It is my pleasure to give the floor to our first speaker, Sonja Müller from Empirica, which will be presenting an overview of the mHealth implementation guideline co-created with stakeholders in Hungary and the Czech Republic. Sonja, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Violeta. You don't sound too well yet, so I hope you get better soon. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sonja Müller. I work for Empirica in Bonn in Germany. And I, together with many colleagues from Empirica, but also, of course, from the mHealth Hub, was working together with our colleagues in Hungary and the Czech Republic, who are also here, Jelinek Gütter and Istvan Koza. They will have a few minutes in my presentation as well later to coordinate the work we did on mHealth implementations in the two countries. And I will try in 20 minutes to present you a bit of an overview of what the project did in that regard. It's quite challenging, I guess, because we did a lot, but I will try to be as clear and as concise as possible. So let me share my screen. So I will present a part of what we did in the 2 years of collaboration with the two countries, Hungary and the Czech Republic. And this is one of the main results of the work throughout the 2 years, which is an implementation guideline for diabetes applications that has been co-created mainly with the colleagues in Hungary, but also considering inputs from the Czech Republic. I will present also what we did with the Czech Republic, of course, but the implementation guideline has specific chapters that are specifically developed with and for Hungary, but also has some general chapters that can be used by other countries as well. So as a starting point, just to give you a bit of a background of what we did in terms of supporting countries on their mHealth implementation journey. So we worked, as I said, with two countries that had quite different starting points when we started the collaboration. Hungary is quite mature and has a evolving electronic health record structure, and personal health record systems exist. Digital health legislation and e-health strategies are currently developed or already in place by now. The Czech Republic is in the first phase of the policy development for mHealth applications and strategies, and the landscape for mHealth is still in its inception. So for the hub, which is still a project, as you know, this was quite an opportunity because we could test our implementation support strategies with two rather different mature countries, and we could work together with them in a very tailored way depending on their maturity. So we could provide quite a flexible support, which also led to us being able to learn quite a lot from this work and approach. And of course, the maturity of the country impacts on their capacity to harness what we do in all the knowledge tools of the mHealth Hub. What we did is we tried, as I said, to provide a tailored and flexible support. It was a joint journey, so we tried to harness the different expertise areas that are available in the mHealth Hub consortium to provide tailored support depending on the specific support needs the two countries were expressing. We and the colleagues from Hungary and the Czech Republic gathered a range of stakeholders in their country together, and sometimes for the first time, in order to jointly work on an implementation support strategy. It was a context-sensitive support, as I said, so we started from different maturity levels. We started from different support needs accordingly. So we really were providing a regional, national adapted support strategy. It was multidisciplinary, so the stakeholders gathered in the two countries came from a range of disciplines, which is, of course, important when it comes to mHealth application implementation. A challenge, but also an opportunity sometimes was that we tried to embrace political changes that always occur, sometimes even in short time frames in the countries, that sometimes also led to changing support needs. And along the way, we had several of these political changes and resulting focus areas, and we tried together, like the mHealth Hub and the stakeholders in the two countries, to adapt according to these changes. We also had to cope with uncertainties. One of them was, as I mentioned, the political changes that always occur. Another thing was obviously the pandemic, which, also this work influenced by the fact that we couldn't, for example, not once visit the colleagues in the Czech Republic and Hungary, which in my experiences makes collaboration and interaction with different stakeholders at least not easier. And then the colleagues from Hungary and the Czech Republic with whom we were working were exactly the ones providing care to COVID-19 patients who had to implement vaccination strategies and procedures in parallel. So that was quite a challenging time, especially for them. And I take the opportunity to thank you again for your dedication to this project in such challenging times. When you think about supporting countries in an implementation journey, you tend to think it's a straightforward journey with a starting point and an end point, where you do certain implementation support, and then at one point you have reached your goal. In fact, at least to my experience, and I'm quite sure that many people who have done this support work, and probably also my colleagues in Hungary and the Czech Republic will agree, often it looks more like this. So you have to be flexible in adapting to changing circumstances, to changing stakeholders, and in our case, of course, adapt to things that led to changes due to the pandemic. The start of the journey for the two countries was always a stakeholder analysis and the agreement of an activity roadmap. So we tried together with the colleagues to identify what stakeholders we would need to involve. It was for both countries quite a range of different stakeholders. And then we co-created an activity roadmap that consisted of online work, for example, webinars, stakeholder workshops and things like that, but also offline work, depending on also where, how high the workload of the colleagues in the two countries were in terms of the pandemics. We also did quite some offline work by exchanging emails, by exchanging documents and collecting comments from the stakeholders nationally on the documents. Together with the stakeholders, we then did an assessment of support needs, which had to be quite tailored and often started from a range of support needs that potentially could be addressed, but then that had to be matched, of course, to the expertise areas that are available in the hub. So you have to start, I think, broad, from a broad perspective, but then have to narrow it down and to be quite specific in order to provide tailored support, and also in order to be able to work along the lines of the priorities and the objectives you have set. We did a range of stakeholder engagement workshops where we really tried to involve all the stakeholders in the different countries. I think for the Czech Republic, it was sometimes even the first time where these stakeholders came together and discussed the future developments for mHealth applications and the strategy for the Czech Republic. And then providing support, at least for the mHealth Hub colleagues, also meant that we had to learn a bit about what the context is in the specific country and in what context we are operating and we are providing support. The support areas in general that we provided derived along the different knowledge tools that the hub is or was working on. So we were working and providing support in the area of knowledge tool 1, which is on assessment frameworks and provides key considerations in setting up an assessment framework for mHealth applications. Knowledge tool 2 is providing support and guidance for an intervention-specific mHealth program on type 2 diabetes. That was, of course, a good link for us because we in Hungary especially also worked on type 2 diabetes mHealth application support. Knowledge Tool 3 gathered some best practices on system integration, for example, reimbursement models, where specifically the Czech Republic was able to learn something on and was interested on. And also we developed in the mHealth Hub ethics and GDPR quick guides that have been presented to the colleagues in the Czech Republic and Hungary, and hopefully help them to understand a bit better what to consider in relation to ethics and GDPR, and to navigate through the jungle of ethics and GDPR. Work Package 5, mHealth Policy Framework, was also something we developed in the hub, and where we at least partly provided some support to the 2 countries. So when it comes to developing the guidance for implementation of an mHealth application on type 2 diabetes, these are the methods we applied. As I said, it started from identification of country support needs, understanding the needs of the target group to be addressed, understanding the different needs of the stakeholders involved. So not only the patients and informal carers that are actually using an mHealth application, but also stakeholders involved in providing care and support to these patients, for example, GPs, specialists, and other organizations. Understanding the enabling environment, for example, what infrastructure is already existing in that country, what processes are there to provide care and support to type 2 diabetes patients and the like. Then we, together with the 2 countries, identified service gaps and pain points that then helped us to analyze the current landscape of existing mHealth applications that could potentially address the service gaps identified. And that's what we did. And what also helped us is to draft a process pathway, so a future process pathway that on the one hand identifies the current bottlenecks and pain points in the pathway of providing care and support to type 2 diabetes patients, but also helped us to identify where exactly in the pathway one or the other mHealth application could support in better providing seamless care and support. Different methods we used. I don't have enough time, I realized, to go through all of this, so I will jump to the next slide. What we did is, we are also closely collaborating, obviously, with the WHO, who have developed a lot of mHealth Be Mobile guidelines, and we, of course, took advantage of this and in that specific case, of course, on the diabetes mHealth Be Mobile guideline. So what we did is we arranged the structure of the guideline we developed according to the chapters in the mHealth Be Mobile Diabetes Handbook. So we start with operations management, which includes, for example, the needs assessment, stakeholder analysis, and things like that. Content development and adaptation. This is something I will present in a minute. For example, we use the persona development approach in order to identify needs and requirements for patients and informal carers, but also service process models to identify needs from other stakeholders involved in the pathway. We have a chapter on technology, which we extended a bit. So the original mHealth Be Mobile handbook calls it technology. We extended it to ICT, infrastructure and technology. because we think that for mHealth applications, ICT infrastructure that persists is of great importance when you implement mHealth applications. Systems integration is what we added specifically for this context. And then we focused on a chapter on monitoring and evaluation, where we try to give some guidance on the two countries on this topic, whereas promotion and recruitment was not so much a support need expressed by the two countries, so we didn't work on this specifically, at least in the framework of the project for now. This is how the implementation guideline looks like. I will explain a few examples of this in a minute. I'm not able to present the whole document. It's a, I think, 100-page document by now, but it will be available after February on the website. So you're, of course, invited to have a look at it and also to give feedback after we have published it. Yeah, a few words on each of the chapters. Operations management included analysis of cost benefits of diabetes health apps. So that's what we did, answering a request or support need specifically called for by the colleagues in Hungary. We organized stakeholder workshops to discuss the organizational structures and the care services provided to type 2 diabetes patients, how they are being empowered, and how different ICT elements support that pathway. And we established diabetes focus fields, which mainly means that we narrow down the target group of a potential mHealth application we provide support for. Content development and adaptation. We use the approach of a persona creation to identify a range of specific needs and requirements for a potential patient. We created service scenarios. I come to that in a minute. Future process pathways were developed, and then, as I said, gaps in the workflow of delivering health services to type 2 diabetes patients were identified. This is how a persona looked. So this is János, developed together with the colleagues in Hungary, targeting diabetes patients who are on oral treatment as of now and quite newly diagnosed. And the structure of that persona helped us to understand what the concerns, needs and requirements of that specific person are, and to understand a bit of the context around that person. A service scenario opens up the viewpoint, so it also looks at other key actors involved in the care process pathway, the needs of these actors, their interactions, and also ICT tools a persona uses or services supporting the scenario elements. It also tries to investigate potential interoperability issues. This is how a process pathway looked. So we, it's not a clinical pathway, not to confuse that. It's depicting a general process flow and identifying key components of a process pathway. On the top, you can see it starts with early detection and assessment of the patient's care planning and coordination, treatment and management, and then also detection of complications. So we really try to not only look at the mHealth application as a standalone service, but really try to integrate that into the whole process pathway a patient moves through. The lighting buoys here are specific bottlenecks and pain points we identified and also try to address with the colleagues in the two countries. And I need to speed up, Violeta, right?
Yeah.
Chapter 5, I will do my best. Chapter 5, ICT, Infrastructure and Technology. I will not go into detail, but the idea was to map potential applications that we have analyzed to the bottlenecks and challenges we identified in the pathway in order to provide some recommendations of what mHealth applications could be looked for or what could be developed in the future. System integration summarizes standards to consider, a change management approach we suggested, and looks also at ethics and GDPR. With a quick ethics guide that you can see here on the right-hand side, but that is also available on the website. And then last but not least, evaluation and monitoring, where we summarize a few guidelines when it comes to clinical and non-clinical evaluation frameworks and what has been learned and can be considered or should be considered in that regard, and socioeconomic evaluation. And I pause here and thank you for your attention. But last but not least, I know I only have 3 minutes left. I would like to give the floor to my dear colleagues from Hungary and the Czech Republic, maybe for 2 minutes each, to summarize a bit your viewpoint of what we did together and how that worked and what maybe could have been better. So I maybe give the floor first to Istvan, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you. We enjoyed really the cooperation with the mHealth Hub. I think we generated a very good fundament for future projects, and I'm sure that this special knowledge is missing here in our country. We have several experts of diabetes, but we heavily have one who is really expert in the mHealth or in this special border territory. This was a good thing. I think that this report generated by the mHealth Hub, this can be used for the next project. But I believe we miss the in-person meetings here in Hungary, and this face-to-face meeting probably would be able to facilitate the evaluation of the local capacities, the local services. If in the future it is possible, I think it would be very good if you would have a real experience about our current level of services, the user familiarity of these services, and other considerations. And what I believe is a good point for the next time for the further development. I think that there is a huge heterogeneity within the European Union regarding the market weight of the different countries, and countries like Hungary or probably also Czech Republic is not so really promising for multinational service providers, and I believe the EU should compensate this heterogeneity and try to support the introduction of services which are currently available in English-speaking or German-speaking territory, but not in smaller countries. This can be a promise for the future. I believe I would not to take more time. Thank you for the perspective.
Thank you, Istvan. Jelinek, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, just then confirm what Sonja said about Czech Republic. Yes, mHealth and also telemedicine is in very early stage of introduction into healthcare system. So this is our challenge from the ministerial point of view. That means from the point of view of the health authorities, we need to create a friendly and transparent environment for mHealth and telemedicine. And definitely mHealth Hub fundamentally helped in many questions and many issues that were necessary to be familiar with and then to propose some way forward. The result of all the process, if I make it short, because I have just very short time for that, is that we are preparing a national resilience and recovery and resilience project called telemedicine. It includes also mHealth, and within this project, which should start this year and will end at the end of 2025, we will do all the work in with real stakeholders and with real proposals like legislative proposals, guidelines, and assessment frameworks, and then also pilots confirming what was designed. And newly, we also consider to implement KT2. That means actually the intervention you designed for Hungary for diabetes. Though in the Czech Republic it's still not very common to design population like mHealth applications or any interventions based on ICT designed by health authorities or any let's say overlay focused applications. So it's a challenge organizationally, but in this time not that much financially. That means hopefully we will have resources for that to start to do something, and at least some elements of the KT2 may be implemented. But of course our priority is to establish the legal and assessment framework and all the stuff necessary to be able to process third-party mHealth applications that are coming to the country, and to have them handled as appropriate or as done in other countries in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sonja, for the comprehensive presentation in such a tight time. And thank you, István and Zdeněk. I take the opportunity to thank you all the work together with the Hub during the last year and a half. Thanks for your testimony. I am giving the floor now to our next speaker, Maddalena Illario from UNINA, which will be presenting the elements that influence the adoption of mHealth solutions at scale in some of the mHealth Hub participating countries and regions. Maddalena, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Violeta, and thank you for the opportunity to share this part of work in this meeting. I have to say that Mobile Health Hub has been one of the most exciting projects we have been working on, and it has been a great opportunity. I am a professor at the Department of Public Health and endocrinologist by training, and it has been really interesting for me to work in such a multidisciplinary environment. I would like to quote Sonja, the previous speaker, when she referred to the jungle of mobile health solutions that sometimes make it hard for clinicians to identify the best set of solutions to integrate and implement in the current service provision. And this is what hinders the scale up of solutions. And in a complex landscape that is the one of type 2 diabetes, where mobile health solutions have proved effective in a number of exploitation routes. What we did in the KT2, as Sonja referred first, was to make an effort in outlining a tool that could support and facilitate the identification, the matchmaking between one or more mHealth solutions to address specific needs identified according to a customized need identification. Our multi-step approach was piloted with Hungary, and we carried out a country self-assessment and interview to outline the elements to further develop into a SWOT analysis. And in parallel, we also carried out a categorization of solution and persona adaptation to feed into the algorithm. Today, I will present the preliminary results that we collected on the footstep of the SWOT analysis pioneered with Hungary and further extended to other regions and countries that worked in the hub volunteering for this exercise. And we have Hungary, as I said, who pioneered the model, Italy with 2 regions, Marche regions and Trento region, Norway, Scotland in the UK, and Turkey. And I thank all these colleagues for the time they took during this wave of the pandemic to this further effort. As expected, one of the first strengths that was identified was the current investments that are being undertaken in most countries on mobile health solutions for type 2 diabetes. Mostly there are part of the countries referred to investments, but still there is part of resources that are allocated in the framework of grants. This means that resources are not allocated with a continuity. And there is still part of the interviewers, of the people who volunteered, who identified that there are no specific resources allocated to mobile health solutions. There are assets dedicated to the deployment of mobile health solutions, and it is comforting to see that human resources are among the most valuable asset that is being dedicated to mobile health solutions. Still, there are softwares that are not being invested in, and maybe there is a gap in the allocation of adequate resources into the softwares that support probably the integration of the mobile health solution into current service provision. Medical specialists are among the key players identified by participants, and this means that GPs on the other side are only still marginally involved, not adequately involved. That was kind of surprising that no IT experts are identified by any of the participants as key players for mobile health solutions, and neither are researchers. That are 2 IT experts and researchers may be key figures in facilitating the adaptation and integration of the mobile health solution into current service provision. The mobile solutions are partially implemented in most of the participant organizations, and there is still part of the organizations where mobile health solutions are not recognized as an important, valuable tool to improve service provision. Everybody is investing in capacity building through training courses and learning networks. There is still inadequate exploitation of peer-to-peer learning opportunities and mentoring, tutoring, and coaching that are new, effective, that are approaches that have demonstrated their effectiveness in capacity building. So probably this is something that we could further exploit. The most important area of improvement that is recognized by all participants is lack of continuity between services for type 2 diabetes. This means that the service integration is inadequate, and that IT solutions cannot can support the service integration, but cannot address organizational changes that are required to improve service continuity. The second in place is data fragmentation and dirty data. So data quality and data fragmentation are the second most important area of improvement that is identified by most stakeholders. There is a recognized need to increase the digital literacy, and this was something we expected, but also there is a need to strengthen interoperability between mobile health solution and current digital service flows. There are some gaps in service provision for type 2 diabetes that concern the teams that the multidisciplinary teams that provide services to the patients. 100% of participants identified that there are some figures missing that are mainly professionals with soft skills and IT expert and expert in organizational in service organization. The opportunities that have been identified by for the scale up of mobile health solutions are related to the opportunity to strengthen the mobile health solution integration into national planning for health services and for social services. So there is room for improvement in this, and also in the regional planning for both social and health service provision. The current trend for investment in health services is a positive element, and it can be also translated into investment for training of professionals and for digital literacy of the population. Everybody thinks positively of a mobile program for type 2 diabetes. So actually there is an interesting element that relates to IT experts. IT experts, not all IT experts think highly of mobile health program, and this may mean that probably we do not listen enough to IT experts' suggestions. So we may strengthen our capacity to identify gaps suggested by experts. The threats. There is a competition identified by private health service providers and also by global companies that somehow provide generalistic solutions for health monitoring that may not be considered adequate by health service providers and health service system, and this may be and there is a resistance to change of local stakeholders that is identified by all participants to this survey, and this may be reflected partly into the slow purchasing processes that are complex, and this means that the turnover, the high speed turnover of technology that is a value because it translates innovations, results into new services, is seen as a threat. This is a serious concern to me because it means that the full value of the turnover and the new technologies is not considered a resource. And this is probably due to the complex spending procedure that underpin the change of innovative solutions that are made available into any organization, and that also reflect, match, somehow mirror the previous slow purchasing processes. So this is an overview of these results, and we know that there are many investments being available currently, and we can probably concur with a collaborative approach to improve the capacity of the investments to involve besides medical specialists, also GPs, patient organization, and social workers. Also strengthen the integration of professional training with the peer-to-peer learning exchange opportunities and mentoring, coaching, and tutoring by in the framework of collaborative approaches that are also carried out at the international level, like the hub is doing. This would also benefit the general organizational culture, acknowledging mobile health, and also invest into simplifying the purchasing processes that can underpin addressing the obsolescence somehow, because obsolescence is born out of resistance to change and of the difficulty of purchasing new solutions that come out in the market and can be integrated into service provision. So basically, together we can change the paradigm for health technology that can become, can transform from a threat into an opportunity for patients and professionals and organizations. Thank you. And now I can take questions. I don't know if we take questions now from the chat or later.
Thank you, Maddalena, for this enlightening presentation. Are there any questions for Maddalena? If not, you can think about them, and we can have still some minutes at the end. If there are no questions, I am giving the floor to our third speaker, Arturs Mietulis from WHO, which will be presenting lessons learned from country support. Arturs, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Yes, indeed, I will present lessons learned from the country support, which actually fits very well all the previous presentations that have been shared by our peers. So to start, what are those lessons learned? So in fact, the lessons learned is all about the experiences that the hub generated during the process of implementation and working with the two countries, the Czech Republic and the Hungary. And if you would ask, so what's the purpose of gathering those lessons learned? It's all about to gather the information on what actually worked well and what did not. And if we see the whole process of generating those lessons learned, it may be seen as the part of the bigger process of the cooking the mHealth strategy for the country, which is in fact, as any cooking process comprises of the recipe ingredients, which were the mentioned guidelines, which are not the clinical guidelines, but kind of a recommendation of what is the path to take to get where we want, and the recipe itself, which is the roadmap for the implementation, and of course the hub assistance itself that represents the recipe book, which guides us on how to proceed on with getting the result. So during the process, we of course identified that no one reaches full-scale implementation at once. There are several steps, starting from the very basic services, perhaps from the formalized plans, further integrated into the ecosystem, and bringing us at the end of the day to the full-scale mHealth ecosystem. So since we have those 5 steps, those were grouped into 3 indicator groups. So let's say step 1 and step 2, the basic services and the formalized plans, went into the indicator group 1. The established ecosystem, where we are already halfway through, they shape the indicator group 2. And when we're talking about the full-scale adoption, those are the indicator group number 3. And all of those indicators, they actually comprise of the result indicators and impact indicators. And I will tell you more about that further on. So if we talk about what was the outcome of this whole process, the outcome was the monitoring and evaluation matrix. So why did we do that? We wanted to actually see what worked well and what did not work well, both for ourselves and also for the further clients, the future clients of the hub. We wanted to show that actually the roadmaps that were developed for the two countries, even though they are tailored, they may be utilized also by other states, so they are in a way adaptable to any new conditions. So we wanted to show that there may be results that could be used by policymakers to assess how close they are to reaching the goals of implementing mHealth strategies, and so they could rely on the evaluation based on our result, our work. So here is the chart, which is in fact the monitoring and evaluation matrix. What is it all about? As I said before, there are three groups, group 1, group 2, and group 3. And in each of those, we see on the left side, next to the circles, that there are certain result indicators. So for the basic level, we see 4, which are theoretical model, requirement for the solutions, prioritizing our targets, and develop the personas that were mentioned before. So this is everything we need to get the very basics to start with implementing the mHealth strategies. And of course, vertically, we see the impact indicators. It means nothing comes for granted. We need to put certain efforts, and vertically from the left to right, we can see what we need to do to proceed developing our results. Same goes for the group 2, where we see 3 result indicators, which are building blocks that we need to establish, where we need to outline the process and mapping the process pathways. And the third one, which is the most developed group, close to the full-scale adoption, has more result indicators, which are service scenarios, specific solutions identified, integration into the actual strategies, adoption of KT2 and adaptation to the national guidelines, if such exist, thinking of twinnings, thinking of country support through the hub, and set of the ecosystem per se. So what do we do with all those wonderful tables? Let's see. In fact, this is something that is pretty easy to use as a matrix. Some may see it as a bingo chart or something similar. So we start left and go further to the right and down. So we start when we have nothing. In fact, we have no ecosystem, and then we start assessing our system. So what do we have currently? We have a little bit of, for example, theoretical model. Yes, we tick one box. We have prioritized our targets. We tick another box in the other line. So, but our system is still quite fragmented. Then we, on the third level, we may see that when we start actually focusing on certain results, we try to work up to the moment where we will fill the whole line. It means we will reach this result by satisfying all the impact factors. And in fact, the very last picture shows us that as soon as we satisfy all the criteria identified, we may say, yes, we have reached the expected results. We are closer to the full-scale implementation. And since the previous 3 charts, which are group 1, group 2, and group 3, are quite cumbersome and difficult to understand at once, we have tried to summarize it in a way to make it seem like a list of recommendations, for example. So in order to reach the basic level, you need to think of co-creation of theoretical model, work on the identification of requirements for your mHealth solutions, prioritize your targets, and create personas. And here in the text, you may see what exactly it means to reach each of those. Same goes for the intermediate level and the advanced level. So in order to satisfy, to reach the intermediate level, you need to define your building blocks, to outline the processes and map the process pathways, and same for the advanced level, which is, as I said before, the development of service scenario, identification of specific solutions, integration into public health strategies, adoption of knowledge tools, and so forth. So at the end of the day, what do we have? In fact, we may see that the hub itself is not just in an an institution, a project that was focusing on just establishing a knowledge. It has also established a network. So it's both network and knowledge, which has worked on the implementation of mHealth in different settings. So both Hungarian and Czech cases show that, in fact, it is feasible to implement mHealth strategies on a national level by means of using services provided by such an organization, such a project as an mHealth hub. And we may see that, in fact, all the lessons learned, so all the conclusions that we made has been gathered together to generate something that could be used also on a national level by the national stakeholders to assess how close they are to implement a full-scale mHealth solution for a certain non-communicable disease, for example. And the future clients may be sure that we do have the generalizable roadmap that could be tailored to the needs of any specific country, so our future clients may be sure that they will receive the assistance that they need. So that was all from my side. Thank you very much. I'm passing over to Violeta and looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Arturs, for the comprehensive presentation on the lessons learned from country support. Do you have any question for Arturs? So if there are no questions, we'll still have some time for discussion. You can ask questions on all the speakers we have here this morning.
Violeta, there are some questions in the chat. There is one question I see on the guidelines management from Unbekannter Nutzer. I don't know if he wants to intervene and make the question himself. Did you consider the legal aspects of the guidelines from the scientific point of view in according with international GL guidelines from the applicational point of view? And then there is also another question earlier on, but I think it was for Sonja.
Yes, and I answered in the chat already. I mean, I think that person also had left. So
Okay.
Maybe my answer scared him. I don't know. Maddalena, are you moderating the chat question?
No, I was just reading because I don't know how Violeta is feeling, and I wanted just to support her.
Yes, no, I see.
I was just trying to go through the chat.
Arturs, there's a question to you and you're raising your hand, so maybe you want to answer that question.
Yes, indeed, this was the purpose of me raising the hand. I see two questions. First one from Stefan Schuck. Is there a corresponding white paper for the presentation made by me? In fact, everything that was presented by me is a part of one of our deliverable on lessons learned, and this deliverable in the coming weeks will be published. It will be both available on the dedicated European Commission's webpage and also on our own project webpage. So all of this will be available, and I believe this is also answering the second question, where will the presentation be available somewhere? So I can't say for the presentation, but in fact you will be able to see the deliverable itself, where you will even get more details, and in the close future we are preparing a short document on this deliverable, which will also be circulated through our webpage. So there will be information. Just keep an eye on the mHealth Hub webpage in the section of documents.
Yeah, we want to draw your attention on the webpage, of course. So Arturs' presentation has raised a lot of interest, it seems. And just for me to summarize what Ricardo was saying, I think by By naming the document I presented guidelines, I mean, we may want to reconsider the word because it probably causes some confusion to be confused with clinical guidelines, which is actually not true. I mean, it's by no means a clinical guideline. It's a summary document of what we did with the countries, what we learned, and how and some specific recommendations for Hungary based on their specific support needs. So clinical guidelines would be obviously the document that needs to be considered in the first place. And we are like adding some, I would even call it more generic guidelines and recommendations to supporting a specific country in implementing an mHealth application. So it's by no means a clinical guideline. Chedenek.
Yeah, thank you. If I can recall Maddalena's excellent presentation of the very interesting results of the survey and implementation aspects. My question is relating to the clinical aspects. Are there any data that the application brought some positive impact on the, let's say, medical side? That means whether there are some really, let's say, remarkable or at least some kind of results on the diabetes patients with diabetes. Can you say something about this?
Yes, Zdenek, there are data in the literature showing that mobile health solution improve the adherence to healthy lifestyles and to specific prescriptions for type 2 diabetes. But we also have preliminary data from Istvan, who presented this data for their experience. There is an experimental work carried out in Hungary that is showing that the implementation of this mobile health solution is increasing significantly the weight loss, and that also that weight loss in this kind of patients is reflected in the glycemic and glycated hemoglobin levels. I don't know if Istvan is still connected. If he would rather comment himself with Zdenek on their experience.
Yes, I would like to cite, first of all, that it was in the literature already demonstrated that a similar effectiveness of e-health support can be demonstrated as accessible by modern drug therapy. This 0.5 to 1.0 hemoglobin A1C level reduction is typical. And what we done here in Hungary in the preliminary or pilot study, we started to support the diet and the training activity of the patients, and it was a really drastic weight loss, and of course it was realized also in the morning blood sugar and hemoglobin A1C value change in this patient. But at the last presentation, I presented really only the raw data regarding the weight change tendency of these patients. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Isman. I wanted to take the opportunity of having Hungarian Czech Republic representatives for asking the question to our other country representatives that might be with us today or here afterwards the pub talk. What would be for you, what would you say is needed for creation of a solid environment for mHealth? Thank you. Zdenek, if you want to go first.
You know, This is good question. So we have, as I have outlined in the short presentation, also I spoke about this last month on the dedicated webinar for the Czech Republic. There are two ways with mHealth. That means projects prepared by health authorities like this KT2. That means it's all in hands of a health authority or somebody who is entrusted to do something on the behalf of the country, if I may say, or third parties applications. Both we are considering. So originally we were focused only on the third party applications because they are coming to the number of mHealth applications asking for some reimbursement or inclusion into the healthcare services in the Czech Republic is still very low. That means this somehow also signals the priority. That means it's not that urgent on one hand, but on the other hand, we see that around us there are dozens and thousands and even more than thousands applications that are somehow struggling to be incorporated into healthcare services and possibly get reimbursement. So we expect more demand on this side of the third-party applications. So this was priority because this is how the system, healthcare system in the Czech Republic functions. We have insurance-based system, and all the interventions and also some materials are on the list of items that are reimbursed or not. And everybody is trying to achieve the reimbursement. That means to be on the list, and this is the task to create appropriate assessment framework, and particularly mHealth might need also some legislation so that the roles of stakeholders dealing with this process of assessment is clear and transparent. And then if I go back to the, let's say, population focused application like this KT2, that means designed by the authorities, we have, medical society. That means this is one stakeholder which is important to consider, but their capability, there are doctors actually, elementary doctors associated in medical society. So where is the capacity to build, design, and then operate? This is even more important, to operate in long term this application. That means we have some institutes dealing with public health, but they are, as I have outlined in my previous speech, not yet designed to work with innovations like based on ICT technologies. So this would be a bit more complex process to discuss this with this institute, which is quite traditionally quite well established, with a number of facilities spread even in all the territory of the Czech Republic, but still dealing mostly with infections and these aspects. And then, I just mentioned that our unit on the ministry is very, very small, actually. For innovations, I'm currently there only with some colleagues dealing with management of the projects, and we have, of course, managers above us and so on. But the team is very small. That means to consider that the ministry as such will run this project. That means population focused, including operation. It's a bit outside of the capabilities and capacities. And then we consider hospitals, some advanced hospitals, university hospitals, that means with large facilities and large teams like IT and medical staff and even nurses. That might be an option. So this is now very topical as we are finishing the project for the next period. The telemedicine and mHealth project financed from the Resilience and Recovery Fund. And this is one of the options. So it's experimental. That means it's very new to do something like that, because previously all the applications that are in the Czech Republic are either designed by the third party, that means companies, or hospitals for their patients. But what about the patients that are registered at the GPs, specialists, by diabetologists? So this is the major task. This may not be similar like in beverage systems. That means different healthcare systems, but in insurance healthcare systems, this is quite important. And the primary sector is largely privatized. That is fragmented, very fragmented, and therefore how to prepare the application so that the doctors are incentivized to use it and they like it. By nature, that it means they trust in the applications, and they can distribute it to their patients. So this is the task which is very new. That means this was one of the, let's say, complexity. That's why we originally thought only of the third-party applications, because it's then left on the company to convince the doctor and so on whether it's good or not, if it is already on the list. But now we will have the task to work with all the stakeholders and to make it acceptable for all, and to do something very new in our healthcare system. So this is to summarize what is current view on mHealth on the clinical level. Of course, we have nice applications dealing with information, but they are not considered as a clinical grade. That means like this application dealing with COVID information about vaccination and so on. This is information type of applications, which is also very important and useful and sensitive from GDPR and all these things. But of course, I speak about clinical grade applications, which are somehow to be active in the diagnosing and preventing and caring of particularly chronic diseases. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Zdeněk. I remember you during our workshops, you made a statement that the priorities in mHealth in Czech Republic depend on the purpose of the apps. So I understand this is linked to what you were explaining now, and the importance of also the private sector in Czech Republic in pushing for the adoption on these mHealth applications. Is similar this in Hungary, István, just for our other countries that are in a similar situation, or between Czech Republic and Hungary situation, for them to have some examples and use cases? Thank you, István.
Oh, it was not so easy for me to comment this. Excuse me. In the meantime, I was not able to completely.
The strength of the private companies is very weak in Hungary for pushing for the adoption of mHealth applications. Is the private sector and third parties have a strong role in prioritizing which are the applications that are
what I see, and that it's not dependent the strength of the companies, because there are really huge companies are mobile phone service providers, mobile telephone service providers, I believe, and they are able also to invest in the e-health. The problem is that this market is not covered by patent, comparing to the market of the drugs, where every company know that his investment will be returned during the next 10 or 15 years, guaranteed by official patent. In the case of e-health or mHealth, it is very hard to make such a guarantee, and consequently the investment is not so easy to reimburse. And I believe this is the most crucial point. But I believe this is not unfamiliar in the economical scenario. In such cases, the communities which cover the cost of the investment and not the private player of the market. And I believe as itself, the service should be covered by insurance or any national health service. In such cases, itself, the investment should be covered by this player. Thank you.
Thank you, Isvan.
If I may comment this, because there were some interesting points. We are already with our insurances in such a point that not only economy is to be considered, because there are benefits on the side of the patients and there are benefits on the side of healthcare providers, because they possibly, healthcare providers may handle more patients, or maybe their work will be more efficient, more higher quality, and on the side of patients, they will possibly earlier detect, or they will be earlier to expose the problems with they are coming regarding their health status, and also they may they may have better affinity to healthcare system. That means they will possibly go to the doctors and so on. So there are many good points on the side of the patients, healthcare providers, not only the economy. And this is already in, let's say, advanced stage of discussions with insurances, that this element should be considered, not only just pure economy, whether it will bring in 5 years some money back or not, because this e-health applications are more complex than just a drug. It's a bit more effects to be considered, and therefore we initiated this. We are deriving our approach from MAST. You may know there is a model for telemedicine called mHealth, which deals with various dimensions in an assessment of telemedicine applications, which may be similar to mHealth. That means this approach and these aspects, like patient view, healthcare providers view, but also ethics and other things are inside of the criteria among the dimensions of the model. So this is the stage of our process. But of course, this is not yet fixed, and we expect to be fixed during the projects in the next period of time.
Thank you, Zenek and Isvan. I think this is a situation many countries in Europe are also in. We have been working in the mHealth and telemedicine, but still there are many things to do. One of the priorities in the Department of Digital Health and Innovation in WHO for the next 2022-23 is the creation of a package of tools and guidance for telemedicine implementation and technical country support guidance for scaling mHealth programs. So this is still a new field to draw generalized guidance. We are working on it, and but all the efforts that we have done advancing and working with you, I think has been useful, and you are now much prepared on the political side and infrastructure side. Do you want Sonja, Maddalena, Arturs add anything to the discussion before I make some conclusion remarks?
I just would like to comment that what Zdenek just cited, that the involvement of scientific society might be something to look for in the future, spinning from the process mapping that Sonja showed us in her presentation, how the PDTA SPIN, the diagnostic therapeutic pathway SPIN, is an in-depth, an opportunity for more in-depth evaluation of the impact and implications of this analysis for diagnostic therapeutic pathway, because that is the point where we go into the practice, the current practice service provision. So there is a lot of work for the future ahead of us, I think, and it's really exciting, I think. New tools coming up for us.
Yeah, I would very much agree with that. And I think one of the things I was thinking throughout the workshop and also before, I think linking, if we could link our services that we provide in the future and the guideline, or however we call it in the future, better with the clinical guidelines and everything that exists, that probably would be an advantage. I mean, we have not done that in the project, and that was not the objective of the project and the work we did, but if we could like interlink or refer to that better in the future, I guess that might be a plus. But yeah, nothing to add at this point. Thank you again, yeah, everyone.
And I just wanted to add that actually discussions like these were also the ones that were fueling the drawing of those lessons learned. And in fact, the fact that we are having those discussions further on, it means that the hub does not stop its development. It means that the new lessons will come, and it means that we will improve our work, we will improve our services, and it means that in the future we'll become more sustainable and even closer to our target audience, closer to the member states and their needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. So with this, I want to thank you very much for your attendance in this hub talk. I would have wished to have a bit more voice and strength, but I think all the inputs from all the speakers and all the country representatives have been very useful. Other countries that are here or are interested in this hub talk, they can always approach to the hub, and we are very happy to support them and answer any other questions. Thank you very much to all of you, to the speakers this morning. And I would like to close the talk emphasizing again the mention during the welcome, the importance of this multi-stakeholder approach, which is key for implementing and scaling mHealth programs and encouraging the development of national strategies on digital health through this all-inclusive approach, including all actors collaborating with the communities of practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Get well, Violeta. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.